Hi, everybody. It's Bob Ost, and this is Friday. It's what is it, December 20th? No, is it the 20th? Seems like that can't be.
Yep, it's the 20th.
Okay, it's the 20th. I can't believe it's the 20th. Oh my God. So another year has almost gone by, everyone. Happy holidays. We have the convergence of Hanukkah and Christmas, which doesn't happen very often, coming up on the 25th. So that's exciting. Uh, Also, just want everybody to know that we're going to be doing another one of these next Friday on the 27th. We're doing these community gatherings around the holidays, and we have found over the past 4 years that people don't really do really miss them if we don't have something happening on Fridays. So we're trying to serve the community as best as we can. So this is the TRU Community Gathering. What is TRU? Who is TRU? Okay, we're an arts services organization that I weirdly thought of 32 years ago, and it's basically an organization that we set up to support and nurture producers. Um, I'm a writer. I've been a writer for all these years. And it was a revelation to find out that producers actually had a hard time making things happen. So I started an organization that actually supports producers, and it's kind of grown over the years and now supports all artists and anybody in the business. We just try to give information and help and support and workshops so people better understand theater and better understand how to navigate the business. So this community gathering started because of shutdown. Everybody remember shutdown? A little historical remembrance here. So at April 2020, April 17th, 2020, I had the choice of either shutting my company or going virtual. So people convinced me that going virtual was the way to go. So we opened up a room and people started coming in, and we've had people coming in now for 240, I think it's 240 consecutive weeks. And we've been talking about all sorts of things that are theater related and arts related. One of the threads that we've sort of looked at over these past 4 years are various aspects of politics and art and politics. What we as artists can do that is political, what we can do as individuals that can help um, change our community and our world and our culture in ways that are useful and helpful for the arts. And We had a couple of interesting conversations in the past couple of years. It's a couple of weeks ago, we had Robert Carroll, Assemblyman Robert Carroll, State Assemblyman Robert Carroll, and he talked about a bill that he's been supporting and is. We're going to talk about that a little bit today as well. And we're going to learn more about what's going on in terms at the city level. The bill is Carla and Aimee will correct me, but the bill is actually has to be functioning at a state level. Um, they're going to clarify this for me because I realize just saying it, I'm a little confused about it because I know that it passed in New York City, and I think it still has to pass the state. So I'm going to do something now. I'm going to bring on my two guests who are now here. I'm going to ask Carla. So there's Carla, and here
Hi,
comes Aimee.
everyone. I think
Yeah.
Amy's going to speak to your point here. First of all, she's going to start off with this.
Yes, I will be happy to speak about the bills that are percolating in the city and the state and even federally. And Carla has a ton of really interesting information to share as well. That's very exciting.
Well, the thing that I'm most
Going to
excited
be
about
here.
is we had a meeting earlier this week, and Carla said, there's some great things happening, and I can only talk around them. I can't really address them because we haven't announced them officially. And then I get an email this afternoon saying, guess what? The official announcement was made. So we can now tell you things that you would be reading in a press release today, if you got a press release from the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. So I think we wanted to start with you, Aimee, because I think we wanted to catch up on the bill that Robert was talking about. I remember that.
Sure.
I remember from our conversation, Carla, you told me to start with Aimee.
Well, I am happy to start. I know that we have a community gathered here that is not necessarily New York City centric. We're from all over the country. So I am going to move pretty quickly through a few more New York City specific things. And then I want to talk about a federal issue that's happening. For everyone here in the meeting, my name is Aimee Todoroff, she, her. I am the former managing director of the League of Independent Theater, an advocacy organization. I generally continue to be an arts advocate within the sector.
I do want to say something because I promised you I'd say this. Aimee has left LIT and she wants anybody who's interested in possibly replacing her to send her an email and talk to her about it because she was looking for she thought that the TRU community would be a good place to find somebody who could do this.
Yes, it's a community of caring people who know how to get things done. So if you are interested in advocacy, we're a small but mighty organization. I'm sure TRU can connect you with me. I'm also happy to put my email in the chat. But I'll do that after I give a very quick kind of catch up on what's happening. You have probably already discussed at some of your meetings the City of Yes legislation. That is a very New York City specific proposal that was passed on December 5th. It is generally a rezoning proposal, but one of the things it is going to do is to open up a lot more affordable housing for artists, but not only artists, just for people who are living in the city, and everyone in the city knows what the real estate is like here and that we are facing a housing shortage.
And can I just say, because I read about this today,
Yeah.
basically what I learned was that because of zoning laws in the city, a lot of neighborhoods that could otherwise be built up a little bit more are limited. They've been limited, and builders haven't been able to come in and create additional housing. So this what is it a law? It's a law. It's a what is it? It's a proposal. This proposal, the yes,
I'm calling it a scheme. It's a plan.
The scheme is a scheme.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a scheme. It's a plan.
Policy position, really.
Yes, it's policy. Yeah.
It's policy. Okay.
Yes. So it came through the mayor's office, so it doesn't require the legislature. But yes, Bob, you've explained it so well. It basically just loosens up decades and decades old, sometimes from the 1920s, old rules around zoning, where you might not be able to build a theater, or you might not be able to have performance spaces based on some zoning rule that is no longer even relevant to the way we live in 2024. You know, there were rules on the books relating to taxidermy. I mean, how often does taxidermy come up in our city at this time? So that is great news, that is something that will be going forward. And I did want to highlight for people who might be following some of the stories around the performance space in West Park. City buildings with landmark status will be able to take advantage of this policy. So that's good for them because they will be able to build while keeping the landmark status. They will have to, of course, work with the Landmark Preservation Commission, but they will then be able to have another source of income to help those historic landmark buildings stay active and stay part of their community. And also, I was very pleased to read that there is no new development on parkland. So we're not going to lose any green spaces, but we are going to have new opportunities for affordable housing, which is so important to the artistic community, and also opportunities for more performance spaces to open up in places where they might have been limited because of some arbitrary zoning that didn't actually apply to the neighborhood anymore.
You bring up a
Um,
question in my mind because I hadn't even thought of this at all. Talking about landmark status and all that. Has this helped in any way to release the 13th Street Theater that's been kind of been held hostage for like 2 years, like 4 years now?
I couldn't
I
speak on that.
read something recently that got resolved. I can't remember the details at all, but I remember thinking, "Oh my God, this is a
This is
miracle that got
this was
resolved."
this is my
It got landmark status, I believe.
and but it also eased some sort of rules because it was just
Yeah,
stymied. Nobody could do
yeah,
anything there. It's like for ever since Edith O'Hara died, which is like 6 or 7 years ago now.
yeah.
And I just want to say that I was one of Mama Hare's tree. I was in the 13th Street Theater, and I was heartbroken when the theater was not exactly closed, but stopped. It just nothing was able to happen there. So um, I'm going to look into that. I want to find out what happened.
I think that will also qualify them. I'm just going to interject for 1 minute. I think that will also qualify them for funding for, new equipment and new light boards and, things they all need from Department of Cultural Affairs, from the Capitol side, which I know they're very much in need of. So that's another aspect.
And just want to say that to have that theater space back would be a real blessing because I think everybody's aware of the fact that we got more spaces closing than we have opening over the past 4 years. So we can use as many performance spaces as we can hold on to. I
Here,
know,
here.
Here, here.
totally unexpected. We were going to talk about this, but it's got me going.
There's so much to
Okay.
talk about. There's
It's
so much
all,
happening.
yeah, it's so interconnected. And I don't want to take up too much time with my portion because Carla has some very exciting things to share. So I will just quickly drop in that uh, the New York City Art Space Act is a state law that many people in this call heard about when Assemblymember Carroll came on the call and talked about it. Um, it is, if I can succinctly explain it, it's just a way for developers to carve out performance space within their building as they're building new constructions going up. There are tax breaks that are available, and in order for the developers to access those tax breaks, a certain portion of their building will be set aside for artistic and creative use. It is much more deep than that, but I don't want to get bogged down into the details because the important thing for you all to know is that it will be a good thing for the city. It'll be a good thing for artists. And as of right now, it has gone through the rules committee at the state level. It has been sent to the real property taxation committee, and they are doing their legislative alchemy before it comes back out, and there will be a slightly amended version of the bill. I don't know what that amended version will look like, but it's in process. So that's a great little sort of note to keep following along. I'm sure Assemblymember Carroll will come back on when there is action for the community to take in terms of reaching out to your representatives and getting them to sign on to the bill.
We all talked about a van to Albany, so
Yeah.
we were
Yeah,
talking about that.
Yes, so much fun, and you absolutely should do it and invite me along too. But the piece that I wanted to bring in, which is federal, which will affect everyone on this call. I don't know if anyone has heard about this bill. It's HR 9495, and it's been nicknamed the nonprofit killer.
Oh,
Yeah, it is deadly serious. The full name of the bill is, I have to look at my notes because the full name of the bill is Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act. Now, I think if I came up to any human being and said, wouldn't you support a law that says that people that were hostages shouldn't have to pay taxes for the time that they were hostages, everyone would be like, yeah, sure, let's vote for that. Yeah, that's a great thing. And that is what maybe 2/3 of that bill has outlined. Then there's the third part of the bill, which is the stop terror financing part, in which any organization designated by the secretary as having provided material support or resources to an organization described in paragraph 2. And paragraph 2 just takes you back to any organization that the government says that we think is a terrorist organization, will have their tax-exempt status revoked and possibly have all of their assets seized by the government. So this is serious. This is a serious bill. Anyone following global news has probably heard of Alexei Navalny. It is because of a bill that is very similar to this. It's because of a law in Russia that Navalny was classified an extreme, he was running an extreme organization, he was an extremist, so he was able to be arrested and eventually he eventually died in a Russian prison. And his organization was shut down. And this has very, very serious consequences. There's no backstop in the bill. There's nothing that defines what you need to be considered a terrorist organization. It's just anybody that criticizes the government. So, yes, I can see in the chat many people are talking about it. It is horrific. It is currently being held in the Senate. An earlier version of the bill passed through the House and they tried to vote on it in the Senate and they didn't have the votes for it. So it's just kind of hanging out there. But chances are that in 2025, they will bring this bill back up and it will probably pass unless there's strong mobilization against it. From my talks with other leaders in the field, larger philanthropic organizations, they're worried. Everybody is worried. They are hoping that in the final measure of the bill, there can be carve-outs that will protect nonprofits. But even if you get some carve-outs that protect some kinds of nonprofits, it's not going to protect everybody. And the only other thing that they can do is they are beefing up their legal defense funds. Because if this bill passes, even if, let's say no nonprofit ever gets to the point where it's shut down, there's still the legal challenges that will be constant, and we will lose nonprofits simply because of the legal challenges. So I see Maureen has already put a lot of information in. I'm also going to include an article in the chat that gives some action items, things that you can do. You can call your representatives, but this is something that is deadly, deadly serious, and I want it on everybody's radar, and I want you all to call your reps to push back against it.
Carla, was there anything about that you wanted to add to?
I'll just say that, it hits all the not-for-profits, including the CIGs in the city, the huge organizations that depend on that tax status. But it also protects religious activities. And so we are seeing, there definitely would be carve-outs for all of the evangelical organizations that support Trump and that kind of thing. So it's going to be really unjust. And it's just an incredibly, like Navalny, it's like an incredible persecution and censorship of any kind of art form. You can have an Iranian or an Iraqi or an artist from some country that, from Ukraine or, from someone that Putin doesn't like, and if he doesn't like the artist, and perform on a stage, and that could be closed down. They could lose everything. And I didn't realize the part about putting a lien on their assets. That is incredibly troubling. It's bad enough, but that makes it much worse.
I mean, it's
Because
as
they're
simple
gonna
as if I
murder
produce a play reading that is critical of the Trump administration,
Yeah, well,
they could
so
close
much theater
TRU.
is political. I mean, it's like who's making these decisions? People that don't know anything and they can just come in. We were kind of talking about the fact it's kind of like the Chris O'Feely using dung in his paintings at the Brooklyn Museum and having getting closed down and having the mayor close down the Brooklyn Museum when it was Giuliani because of that complaint, which is, absurd. He's an African artist. So that's a small little aspect of what hysteria can culminate around these things.
Now, on the bright side, there have been some things that have come up today that were announced, and things that you and the Office of Media and Entertainment can share. Just
Yeah,
so we can dig
yeah.
out of the ditch.
I'm so excited Carla's here so that she can pull us out of the doom and gloom.
I
While she's
know.
talking, I am going to put in, if I can find other links, I'll put them into the chat so that people can read more about it and follow the steps outlined in things like I'm going to look up Robert Reich's Inequality Media right now and put it in the chat. So thank you,
That's
Carla.
Well, Aimee, thank you for that because it's so important and you articulated it so clearly, as you do always. Aimee and I have known each other for 10 years now since I started working in creating the theater department as it is now. And I couldn't have done it without her. She was really integral in the reporting and in the aspects and, a hard questioner of the people running for office, of the electeds. If you went to a forum that they were leading and asking hard questions of the people running, you would know Lit is a serious actor in all of the, getting the right candidates in elected, basically, and showing who people are and what they'll do for the arts and get them to commit to it and then hold them to it. So that form of advocacy is it's rare that it's as effective as it is with Lit. So it's done a
I just
great
want
job.
to explain to anybody who doesn't understand that that it also requires that Lit has a specific kind of nonprofit status that allows her to be an advocate.
Yeah.
We're a 501c3, which we're not allowed to do advocacy. Lit has a 506. What is it?
So we are a 501c6, and I have to get out of the habit of saying we are because I am the former managing director, though I'm always going to be part of this world. But we are a 501c6, so we're a business league. But I also just want to clarify that I learned over the course of doing this work that nonprofits, a 501c3, can advocate. You can't lobby. So you can go in front of your elected representatives and say, this is the problem that we're having. And gosh, I really want you to help our community. You can advocate, you just can't lobby. And we can have a discussion on those differences another time.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to know since I was planning to take that van up to Albany.
You can do that, Bob.
Okay.
Um,
So Carla, there's a lot of news from your office and from the mayor,
yeah.
from the mayor himself and from your office. So where do you want to start? There's all sorts of
Wow.
things going on.
It is a lot. Well, what was just announced was something that's been in the pike. It's the former commissioner of my office has been working with Department of Cultural Affairs in a very particular position as kind of what was called culture at risk and is now officially titled Create in Place. And they just announced, did a press release. I'll put it in the chat, the link in the chat. It's pretty amazing. It's basically for all of, we're answering to the many, many aspects of how the industry has been hurt after COVID and how it's been hurt by, all these changes that have constantly not taken the industry seriously. The theaters as small businesses, the amazing impact economically and culturally that small theaters and live performance and all the aspects of the ecosystem that go all the way up further to the Carnegie Hall levels and the Metropolitan Museum and opera levels, but they wouldn't be here without the little guys. And we know that better than anyone. And so I think we're actually meeting with the people from Edinburgh Fringe when they come to town for APAP, which is exciting. We're going to compare notes about, because they're going through a crisis nationally with lots of funding being cut and that kind of thing. But the good news is the Create in Place has a website, and it's actually under the Department of Cultural Affairs. It's led by them. It's been an interagency task force. I'm going to kind of look at my notes too, because this just came out today and there's a lot of details. So the agencies that are involved are my agency, which is the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. I do the theater side. My colleagues do film. We also have NYC Media, if Susan is on the call. Big Emmy winners this year, by the way. Congratulations.
They won
Five.
five. That's right.
Yeah.
That's Susan.
Really.
For those of you who are wondering, we're talking about Susan Handman, who's not
Sorry.
here today, but yes.
Oh, okay. I don't know who's here today.
No.
So then it's also the Mayor's Office of Nonprofit Services, Small Business Services, the Office of Nightlife, Economic Development Corporation, and City Planning. We've all been brainstorming for the past year about what we can do when venues are closing. Where can people go to find out information about rehearsal space? Or, it's always the need for it is always there, but no one's been able to really take hold of it. And so Ann Del Castillo, who's been basically working on this nonstop, has really done a great job. So she's created this agency task force. We have created a resource hub, which is an aspect. So people seeking assistance with space needs, tech assistance, funding opportunities, lists of creative workspaces and services provided, webinars and best practices guides, tools and support is the next prong. The third prong is that it's a one-on-one. You can ask for one-on-one support and referrals. And the fourth and final prong is Creative Space Network, which is a place where organizations and landlords with space available for creative uses. And this ties into what we're talking about with Carol's bill. For creative ways, they can submit information via an online form so that people can go to this website and see what's available. And it serves to identify which developers are also interested in having creative spaces and, making that part of their development plan. And so it's I'll put the link in the chat, but it's a really good thing, because with the venues leaving and people consolidating and all the different models, this is a great way to track. And we haven't really had that before. And there hasn't been an agency, especially one as big as Department of Cultural Affairs, that has taken this on before, other than just doing grant making. So it's a real breakthrough in communication. And I think it will help the industry on every level a lot, and especially people that just don't know where to go. I mean, I get hundreds of emails a day of people saying, who do I talk to? Who's the contact? I can't find anything on their website. And I know how frustrating that is. So this is an answer to all of those many, many issues. So
Well,
another,
let me just say,
yeah.
so much of what we're talking about really focuses on space. And I think that some people in the room might want to know what initiatives are there that might be useful for them as individual artists.
I'm
Are
sorry.
there, like one of the things you were telling me earlier this week was that there's going to be this global advertising of everything that's going on in New York and anything that's theater related. and that they were welcoming all of us to
Yeah.
list what we're doing.
This is the next thing. Now, it hasn't been announced, Bob, but I did see some emails going back and
Oops.
forth from people. No, it's fine. It's going to be announced on New Year's Eve by the mayor in Times Square. But people that I know about it and know the name of it. So obviously there's been some, prep for getting this out. So I'm happy to tell you it's going to be formally announced. But what it is it's a celebration. It's a huge marketing campaign with the city and NYC Tourism, and it will live on New York City Tourism's website. And it will be a year-long celebration of the 400th year of the founding of New York City, not the existence of the island. But so they are working with the Lenape people, and they're working, very much with everybody that's impacted by this and everybody that has a part of it. And I think it's going to be incredible. So they're going to have, they're fundraising for it now. They're actually going to do, subway ads, bus shelter ads. There'll be a place on the website that will launch on New Year's Eve where you can fill out a form and get whatever you're doing over the course of the year, even if it's a reading, if you have to make it up so you can get in there, you will get a place on the website and you will get listed. You'll probably be asked for an image for your URL, for, your taglines and whatever it is that you're doing. And then they have a logo that they're going to ask you to put on your website so that there's a reciprocal kind of acknowledgement of this is huge and we're all a part of it. But they're also going to buy a lot of digital ads. They're going to have editorial. They're going to have big celebrations and concerts. I've talked to somebody recently who wants to think about doing a documentary on it. It's really huge. And then following that, the next year is the 250th anniversary of the United States. And so that's going to be, is that right? Yeah. It seems crazy because it was New Amsterdam before, that's why.
Yes, that's correct.
100 years.
And Carla, you made a fantastic point. I just wanted to jump in about participation. I have done this myself as an art maker, is I see this brilliant opportunity that the city is creating. So then I will create something to fill that opportunity, but it has a reciprocal effect and it pays off dividends because I then become more familiar with how city government works, how all these programs work. They become more familiar with me and my company. They're become more familiar with the breadth and depth of work that's happening. So if you do have something coming up in the next year, which I hope most of us usually have something, I really recommend jumping on this opportunity to participate and be a part of this cohort, but also do a reading, stage an outdoor performance, do something so that you can also participate in this because it's good for the city and it's good for you and it really does pay off in dividends.
Yeah, and it's, not asking you to create something specifically necessarily. It can be your regular programming that you're just going to try to just get some eyes on. The thing that's good about New York City tourism, I keep trying to say NYC and Co., is that they are global and they can promote this globally, locally, nationally. And that's not a capacity that the city often has. We do our own all the time and work with the state a lot of time, but this is really an extraordinary opportunity. And there's lots of ways to input on what happens and how it's formed, and I'm sure it's a great thing to have a form already that you can go to and then they'll start accumulating all this, and questions will come up, recommendations will come up, and that can all be considered. This just is at the very beginning of it, even though it's going to be announced. It's just the baby stage. So you're in on that stage, which is what we always like. That's the sweet spot. We want things before they're planned and we're left out. The community and the industry is left out and they've made bad decisions or made decisions that haven't taken into account all the nuances of what all of you know and do every day. So I I think it's
Somebody wants to
really,
know if the website is available yet. Is there?
no, it'll be announced on New Year's
Okay.
Eve by the mayor at Times Square, and the website will go live at that time. I don't have a link
So
to it or
I guess
anything.
I'm going to have to keep an eye
And
out for
it's
it so I can
called,
share it.
it's the 400th year, and it's called, the name of the campaign is Founded By. So
Founded
look
by.
out for it.
So we're going to Google founded by.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to see anything yet because they're really saving it for the mayor's announcement. As far as I know, I think it's just word of mouth that this is brewing and that it's an opportunity that we haven't really had in a very long time for the city to come together. And it's also happening at a time when other things are happening that hadn't happened before, like the Create in Place advocacy movement for keeping theaters and live performance and companies here to stay and viable and affordable housing. One of the things about City of Yes that's so interesting is that it will be spread out into all 5 boroughs. They're going to do incentives for people to build onto their existing real estate if they're able to, like a maybe in Staten Island where there's freestanding houses, or in places where people have some area like a backyard. There'll be an incentive that the city will give, and I'm not sure exactly what it is yet, for people to build a unit for either their relatives or to rent out. And so they're taking into consideration a lot of different things. So it is also the conversions. A primary part of it is the conversions of the empty office spaces that happened to be emptied after COVID, when nobody's going back, into actual housing. So they've had to reconfigure the water and I mean, really structural differences that everyone said was impossible, but they're developers that are game to do it, and it's going to create a lot of new apartments. And in great places in the city, very near hubs of transportation. So
Well, it's ironic because living in the city, one feels like how much more can we build? But apparently there are lots of areas that have been limited in terms of development, which I guess you'll have to tell me where they are. I would actually see them.
well, Bob,
Um,
it's a built city, but there's so much empty space now. And that's how they're able to do it. They can build on a couple floors here and there, but there's a lot of empty space that they're converting. And so that hasn't, that was a strange positive measure from COVID, that it's created more housing stock.
so what are we
As
going to do
people
with the
leave.
empty spaces in uh, right across the street from me? What's it called? Hudson
Oh,
Yards. Hudson
well,
Yards.
that's private. That's a private enterprise. I'm sure that they're working with the city on, and as far as I know, their residential aspect, the apartment side of that is very healthy, and they don't have, they have buyers that live all over the world
Well,
and
it's
don't live
healthy,
there.
except it's most of it has been bought by people that are
They're
just
not there.
they're not there. So it's
Yeah,
like
so
a
the
ghost town.
restaurants and the art and the shed and a lot of the
Yeah.
the spaces that should be filled with the public living in those buildings is not. And that's a factor that is an interesting, very New York centric one.
And it's a little frustrating too. Yes,
Very.
you're right. I mean, the health of the shed and other things that are at the Hudson Yards was depending and was assuming there was going to be a lot of people living there, or a lot of apartments that are have been bought, but there's not a lot of people living there. So,
These large venues. I mean, PAC is probably having some problems as well. That's the Perlman Performing Arts Center downtown, which came out of 9/11 discussions with the community as to what they wanted built on that plot of land. And it changed architects a number of times. They had to reroute it over the subway lines and finally got built. It's a magnificent space, but there's not a lot of people that live downtown that would go there ordinarily, for theater. But it's really open to the community in a way. I think the shed needs to be a little bit more open to their community. I think they're trying. I was looking at their website today, and they've done some very innovative programming. I think it's just going to take time. They've had some, some with PAC as well. It's just when you're building an institution like that, and it's got the potential for so much more, it has to be built, step by step. It can't just boom, and people have to make it their community space.
And you're gonna send me the contact information for the person that programs at
Yes,
the
I
shed,
am.
and
I
I'm gonna get
am.
him on the community gathering in
Yeah.
January or February. Okay.
He's lovely, and actually he's the reason I think they're doing such innovative stuff. So that would be a really good person for you to have. I just have to say there's all this other stuff. We just did an e-blast from my office about all the accomplishments this year. But I want to first talk about the tie-in to the Create in Space was kind of happening in parallel, is that my office created along with the co-chairs of this council, Ken Sunshine and Coco Killingsworth. Ken's from Sunshine Sachs, and Coco is an executive at BAM, like the social impact person at BAM, and also the new chair for the CIGs. So she's got her hands full. But they chair this council that has 3 committees. We've been working for about a year and a half, reporting to the first deputy mayor, which is the person that our agency is under, and she's extremely talented and effective, Maria Torres Springer. She was assigned or just actually elevated to the first deputy mayor after the first deputy mayor left. And so she's been in the
After the first
and,
deputy mayor.
Yeah. So she's very qualified. She was in the Bloomberg administration as well as de Blasio administration, heading up Economic Development Corporation and HBD. So therefore, we have an opportunity to get real answers when people say, where can I live, and how can you help me? How can this industry be developed more with the support of the city? So she's a real keen and brilliant thinker, and I think we're getting, we'll be able to announce some results of the council work soon. But there's 3 committees, one on real estate, and they're dealing with affordable housing issues that coincide with City of Yes, and also talking about how artists should be on the ground floor of programming that space that is the give back that we're asking for, so that it will be done well, and it'll make sense, and it'll be efficient, and it will serve the purpose that we've all.
I'm gonna ask you a tough question, though. I'm gonna ask both of you a tough question. How much of this is trickling down to the small artists here in the city? I know we've gotten past the commercial Broadway. I know we've gone into the area of large not-for-profits, but is there a consciousness, is there a sensitivity to the needs of the individual artist?
Well, this has small companies and artists. Basically, what I would think is that there'll be, someone like a Fractured Atlas that will be involved, and they will, be in charge of a space, and they will then re-grant or be the fiscal sponsor for funding that comes through, and then individual artists can be part of the programming of that space. I think a lot of these things are really intended for the small companies, the individual artists. Another committee that we're working on has proposed to the first deputy mayor, and I think it's going to happen. She's done a whole outline. Lucy Sexton is the co-chair of that, along with Laura Penn, who's the head of the Coalition of Broadway unions and guilds, which are about 15 of them. And she's also the executive director of the Stage and Directors and Choreographers Union. So there's we combined commercial, we combined union. We wanted everyone to have a voice and everyone be heard equally in the room. And so they've proposed at the deputy mayor's request, a proposal for a study of how gig workers could have portable health care. And I think it's going to happen. It's really well drawn out. Lucy did a great job. She worked with the committee. She worked with, the culture at 3 task forces and all of the people that are so so much in communication now with all of these virtual meetings that blossomed and continue to grow. And so everyone's getting a lot more information than they used to. And so these things are in development, and also the accessibility level, where my office is funding something called Seats on the Spectrum, which involves the roundabout. Here, Art Center will be part of it shortly. And then
I have to say that I'm happy to hear Roundabout and hear Arts Center mentioned in the same sentence.
yeah, I know.
This is where we're
Not that
this is where we
unusual.
get frustrated.
No. And then the New Victory. So it's a pilot. It's already taken hold. We're just coming on as a sponsor. TDF is the person that trains their staff. It's the idea behind it is to open up regular performances to people on the spectrum. And they have done a lot of work. It's a company or an organization called Lumberyard, and they've done a lot of work to bring everybody in to help define what this should look like, what the needs are. And it's going on now, and they have seats. If you go onto like the Roundabout website for the Todd Hames Theater, you'll see they either have stars or S's, I'm not sure how they're doing it, where the seating would be. And so that's where the seating is reserved for people on the spectrum. And they also have rooms where they can go if they need to. There's lots of, I'm not going to talk into great detail about this right now, but we're doing an announcement with them soon. There is a press release out on Seats on the Spectrum. You can just Google it and see what it's all about. But we're going to help when Here comes on board. And Here has always been very interested in accessibility. So then equity part of that, which is the second committee, accessibility and equity, is we're working with Broadway musicians, partnership, Broadway Equity Partnership. And basically, it's the second year of this pilot where the musicians that are playing in orchestras on Broadway, which has been very white male, pretty much, historically, choose their own subs. And so they'll bring someone on to train themselves who's not someone who is a typical choice, not a friend of the person that's been doing this for 30 years, but a young person. They're all professional musicians. That's a qualification. And they are working now with Carnegie Hall on a younger program that's going to bleed into this, and this will serve as a pipeline. But it's basically so that they will know how Broadway works. They'll be sitting in the pit. They'll have the conductors are working with them. It's really mind-boggling what they've done with the small group of people that are dedicated to this. And so
Well, let me ask you, because I know that you guys have to leave at the stroke of 6:30. Can we take a question or two, or?
Yes, also very quickly, I just want to uplift that Carla has told us about this Create in Place program that everyone has been working on so diligently. And when you first go to the website, it does seem initially like that's for, more established organizations that either have their own space or are looking to purchase space, which that inherently has a bit of scale to it. But another component of the Create in Place is sort of the connecting individual artists or smaller indie organizations with space that is available. And that is huge. So when organizations, somebody has a rehearsal room that you can have, they're just looking for someone to fill it. There might be a nominal charge for it. Create in Place has a mechanism for the individual artist to connect with these spaces. So the answer is yes, it does help the individual artists.
Thank you for answering that question. I'm just going around. But Indie Space is involved. They've been on the ground with Anne on this. Randy Berry and Paul Leibowitz, just amazing people. And so when you say that, my head just always goes to these programs being for the artists themselves, especially the gig healthcare. These are pressing needs, affordable housing, we're not building any more Westbeths and we don't have any more Manhattan Plazas. And thank God we have those still. But it's really sad to think that we had those at one time and that is no more. So we do what we can to build up from there and make things open for people. But just when people want to, I get calls about where can I go to rehearse? I don't have any money. I have, I've got to do this quickly and get my people together. And people always go to their friends and colleagues and find a way. But this will be even broader. And the thing that's kind of good is it's connecting the landlords. So you can see they aren't all bad. There are some landlords that actually want artists in their building, believe it or not.
I want to meet them. I'm gonna have a party and invite them.
I think you should. Well, now we know who they are.
Okay, good.
And it's an open database. So
I know that we have one person who wants to ask a question. Do you have the time for that? Be honest.
Depending on one question.
One question.
We'll
So,
both answer.
Mila, it's going to be you. So, what was your question?
Thank you so much. They answered my question, so I'm going to bow to somebody else in their talks. That's why I always say estrogen can solve world peace and global warming, and now we can help the theater also. So, so I bow to somebody else.
Okay, does anybody else have a question? Because I do have to wind this down so that both Carla and Aimee changed their plans so they could stay until 6:30.
It's true, but it was worth it. And it's so good to always talk at TRU meetings because it's such a great community. And I wish I could be on more than I am, but I'm determined to be on more than I have. Also, I put links in here for the Create in Place and also the City of Yes. I mean, Aimee might have done that too. And then the last link here is just what just came out of my office about what's happened this year, which talks about the victories of NYC Media, our workforce programs, Music Month, Jan Arts NYC, which is happening around APAP in January. So a lot of things that are starting the year with a real bang. Also, CUF, Center for Urban Futures, is doing a talk. I don't know how many people are interested in the tri-state area coming back to Broadway and what's happening with that, but it's a really good panel, and it's on January 7th. You can come in person or you can go virtually. Just Google Center for Urban Futures January 7th, and you'll see who's talking. It's the Schubert's doing it with them. And it's really it'll talk about things that reach out to from the largest to the smallest.
Lee Roscoe wants to know what the price range would be for the living units that are being might be made available, or planned on being made available. We don't really know that, but I remember Robert Carroll said something very specific. No, that wasn't the living units; that was the commercial units. He said that the highest price is $20 per square foot for those buildings, and the advantages start going a little higher when it becomes a little less than that. But $20 a square foot was, I think, the commercial space unit. Mila, your hand's raised again.
Yes, because I remember there was a part two to this. I have been very blessed. I came to New York because I got a full scholarship to Juilliard, and where I live is in the Hotel Beacon, and I've lived here since I was a kid. J.K. Simmons, Dixie Carter. If I told you all the
No,
places.
get to your question because these ladies have to leave.
So the point is, and right next door was the Beacon Theater, which started out as a theater. Now, is that only going to be, have you heard anything? Is it still going to go back to being theatrical theater? Or is it only going to be concerts still?
I haven't heard that it's going back to theatrical, but that doesn't mean it isn't. And I think that there is becoming more and more a meshing between, virtual, between music and theater, between all of the, the creative impulses and industries. It's a lot of, kind of multimedia that's taking over now. I'm seeing more and more of it. So I think that could lead to a lot more access for theater programming. that takes into account. It's not
Because
going to
it's a
be one thing or
terrific,
the other.
terrific space for musicals.
Yeah, it is. It is. That'd be really fun. I don't know. I can find out and let Bob know and give you an answer on that.
And
That'd
I'll
be good.
wash your windows. Thank you.
Yay! Well, this
So
is
I'm gonna thank you both for being here.
yes,
And I know
thank
that,
you.
I know that we were fighting against this really tight schedule for you. So
We'll come on
thank you for
again. There'll be
Yeah.
plenty of things to talk about, and we'll make sure
okay.
that we keep you up to date.
Well, good. Thank you, and thank everybody. I want to thank everybody in the room. I'm gonna unspotlight you guys, but you don't have to leave unless you have to leave.
We have to leave. But thank you for a wonderful session and allowing us to talk
Oh,
Thank
my
you.
pleasure.
about
Thank you
all
for
this.
doing it. Thank you very much for doing it. And thanks to everybody in the room for being here. To those of you who are just discovering us on YouTube or podcast or whatever however you stumbled upon us, I hope that you would be interested in joining us and being in the room and asking questions yourself. You can do that by just emailing me at trunltd@aol.com. That's trunltd@aol.com. And we'll send you the Zoom link so you can join us. Next week, we have a financial consultant, Bailey Slevin, who's going to talk about being comfortable with money, which is something that artists have a hard time with. And actually, other people have a hard time with it too. But we're going to talk about money next week. And then I'm going to start the new year with a spectacular guest, Aimee Todoroff, who is just a legend in cabaret, but also one of the most prolific producers on Broadway. The lady has been on more than 90 shows on Broadway. So join us. Hope to see you all soon. Hope to see you next week, possibly. And have a happy, happy, and healthy holiday, everybody.